So in Parashas Chukas, Zaysa Torah Adam Ki Yomus Ba'oyal. Atem Kruyim Adam Ve'ein Umis Oilam Kruyim Adam. So the Gemara says in Yavam Samach Aleph Reb Shimon Ba'Yefoi Kivrei Nochrin Eino Mitamim Ba'oyal. How about Kivrei Tzadikim? So this was a big controversy throughout the ages. Could Koyanim go to Miran, to the scene of Reb Shimon Ba'Yefoi, to Kivrei, to Ma'oras HaMachpelah? Generally, could Koyanim go to Kivrei Tzadikim? So most Tzadikim are buried together with other people that weren't necessarily the greatest Tzadikim in the world. So in the Beis HaChaim in Tzfas, you probably are all familiar, the Riyah Kodesh and the Bis Yosef. But on that same mountain, 1,000 other people are buried that definitely are on a Tumah boil. But throughout the ages, there were many shilas entering the tziyun of one tzaddik who was known by everyone to be a malach. Or tzaddikim etama. The most fundamental source in Ksubas Daf Kuv Gimel, nowhere else in Shastu Chazal describe in such a moving and vivid description the demise of a great Tana or an Amoira like Ashkaftai the Rebbe. And the Gemara tells the story of that fateful, dramatic day when Rebbe was ill and all the Talmidim came together to daven for his refuah shalema. And as the Gemara describes, Ar'elim u'matzoikim oichesin ba'aroim. It was as if the angels and the Talmidim fought. Each of them held on to the Orim, the angels pulling up and the Talmidim pulling down. Nitzchu ar'elem es hametzoikim benishba aron ha'elokim. And then Rebbe was no longer with us. And the Gemara says, by Yeshkafte the Rebbe, there were machres ein kedusha hayoyim. Oisayim, Botlu Kedusha. Taisus offers two different interpretations. What does Botlu Kedusha mean? One pshat is Rabbeinu HaKodesh was Rabbeinu HaKodesh, the only Tana that was called HaKodesh. And that is what Chazal mean when Rebbe passed away, Botlu Kedusha. Because he was the holiest man in the world, indisputable, clearly. That is why he was called Rabbeinu HaKodesh. But Tosfos offers another interpretation as well, and that is Rabbeinu Chaim Kohen Mebali at Tosfos, and he said, Botlet Kedusha's Kohuna, and they paskin, even Kohanim could participate in the Lavaya, and they could come close and touch and carry Rabbeinu HaKodesh's mito. And that is Oisayim Botlu Kedusha. And Reb Chaim Kohen said, if he would have the schus to be present at the Lavaya of Rabbeinu Tam, he would expose himself to the mitzvah of Rabbeinu Tam, even though he was a Kohen, as his name indicates, Reb Chaim Kohen. The Rashash and Agos are Rashash on the spot. And we find the same in Agra de Kala. Agra de Kala is one of the beautiful swarm of the Bnei Yisachar. So if I would be in Yerushalayim together with you Friday morning, probably I would ask you, who knows who was the Agra de Kala? The Bnei Yisachar. And in Parshas Baloischo he writes, Mina Geretz Yisrael, Kivrei Tzadikim Eina Metamin Boil. And in Eretz Yisrael, the minig is that even Kohanim expose themselves to Kivrei Tzadikim, which is a bit strange. How would the Bnei Yisachar know what is minig Eretz Yisrael? Soon we will see that Gedolei Eretz Yisrael weren't aware of that minig, and they should have known minig Eretz Yisrael as good as the Bnei Yisachar. So the Rashas, the Agra de Kala, they understand the Gemara Botla Kedusha because there's no Isra of Tumas Koyanim by Kivrei Tzadikim. That goes against all the Rishonim. All the Rishonim on the spot, Ksubas Kuv Gimel, Ani Yoredei Shinayin Dalad and Hilchas Avelis. Their interpretation is Kvoid Nosi is Doicha, overrides the Isser of Tumas Koyanim. It's not that there is no Tumah. We're matter the Isser of Tumas Koyanim Mishum Kvoid Nosi. And Reb Chaim Koyan argues the covet of a Godel Ador is equivalent to Kvoid Nosi. And that is why he said it would be a schus for him to expose himself to be Metam Atzmai LeRabbeinu Tam. Yerushalmi Brochas Chav Gimel Amud Aleph. Rav Yanai was machres Ein Kahuna Hayoim. And that is clearly like the second shot of Tosfos, Botla Kedusha. According to the first shot of Tosfos, Botla Kedusha means that Rabbeinu HaKodesh left known in the world that achieved the heights, the level of Kedusha that Rabbeinu HaKodesh achieved. But the second shot in Tosfos is Botla Kedusha, Kedusha's Kohuna. That is clearly the opinion of the Yerushalmi, Brochas Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, Ein Kahuna Hayoim. But that is only because of the mitzvah of Kvoid Nosi, Kvoid HaTorah, which override the Isser of Tumas Koyanim, but it's not a raya that Kivrei Tzadikim Einam Mitamim Ba'oil. So whenever I quote Gedolei Achronim, and sometimes we have Gevaldige Kashas on the Achronim, I'm always happy to find a source in the Rishonim as well. Sefer Kad HaKemach from Rabbeinu Bachye. It's not the same Rabbeinu Bachye as the Choyves Salvavos, it is another one. But he also was one of the great Rishonim. Kad HaKemach Rabbeinu Bachye, Shar Ahavas Hashem. He says, Botle Kohuno, by the Levaya of Rabbeinu HaKodesh, because Rabbeinu HaKodesh meis mises neshika, and by mises neshika there is no Thomas Meis. So we do find somewhat of a source to the opinion of those Gedolim that their interpretation of the Gemara in Subas Daf Kuf Gimel was Kivrei Tzadikim Einam Mitamim Ba'oil. But according to Rabbeinu Bachye in Kad HaKemach, it's not general rule of Kivrei Tzadikim, all the Tzadikim. It is only the very few. The very few Shemeisu Mises Neshika. According to Chazal, it is only Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam. So the Kad HaKemach is a chiddush that Rabbeinu HaKodesh as well, Mes Mises Neshika. But it's not the same as assuming across the board that Kivrei Tzadikim Einam Mitamim Ba'oil. There are many sources in Shas in which it is clear that Kivrei Tzadikim are Mitamim Ba'oil. And once again, if I would be seeing you and you would be seeing me, I would ask, who remembers Sugyas in Shas in which it is clear that Kivrei Tzadikim Mitamim Ba'oil? Well, Bava Mitzvah Pehei, Bava Basel Nun Ches, Sukkah Daf Chafei, Sanhedrin Daf Lametes, Brochas Chavches, so many. Let's start off with Masechet Brochas. Now we'll go according to Seder Shas. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai Lifnei Moisei says, Panu Kalim Min Habayis. Amazing. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, the great Tana. Who was Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's Rebbe? Who remembers? Hillel HaZokan, Sukkah Daf Chofes. Who would Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's Talmidim? That's a Mishnah Novis. Chamisha Talmidim Hoyolo. Most notably, the two giants, Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkanos, Rabbi Yeshua ben Hanania. There's a Gemara that Rabbi Kiva was also Mishamish Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, before he passed away, says, Pano Kalim in Abayis. I will die in a very short time. I want to salvage your kalim from Tumas oil. Whatever you need, take this stuff out. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai obviously was a tzaddik. He was the Gadol Ador. So this Gemara proves Kivrei Tzadikim Mitamim Ba'oil. And that's why he says, Pani Kalim in Abayis. One could argue it's not a raya at all. במקום שאתה מוציא גדולות, שם אתה מוציא בסנוסה. Yes. To us, there's no doubt. He was a tzaddik, and how? He was the giant of his generation. But he was an Anvasam Mushval Berech. And therefore, he didn't see himself as such a great tzaddik. And he says, Anu Kelem and Abayis. But how does he know? He has Ruach HaKodesh, yeah. But he doesn't see himself as a tzaddik. There's a famous story about Rabbi Kivrei. Rabbi Kivrei was amazing. One of the greatest Achroinim. And he was such an honor and the son of Shvalberech. So there's a famous story that Rabbi Kivrei was a very close friend with the Nesivos HaMishpat. And once he came to visit the Nesivos, and the Nesivos was a Rav in a city called Lisa. And because the Nesivos had such unbelievable admiration and covet for Rabbi Kivrei, the elders of the community, headed by the Rav, left the city with a horse-drawn wagon to be makaber ponam Rabbi Kivrei when he comes to visit their community. So the Nesivos was sitting in that wagon waiting for Rabbi Kivrei together with 150 people, the elders and the mechabodim and the rabbonim of the city. Rabbi Kivrei arrives and he's amazed. And he gets up, sits next to the Nesivos in that horse-drawn cart. And they ride into the city. And there's a Kabbalah poem in the home of the Nesivos. And Rabbi Kivrei gets up and he says, I am amazed to see how the people of Lissa revere and admire and are mechabed their great Rav. The Rav left town for a half hour. And what a huge Kabbalah poem they made for him. It didn't even occur to Rabbi Kivrei that all this covet means him. It didn't occur to him for a moment. And he thought all that covet is for the Nesivos. He left town for 15 minutes. And all the elders came along with him. And when he came into the city, there was such a huge Kabbalah poem. So Rabbi Yochanan Mezaka was the only one of his generation who didn't really know Rabbi Yochanan Mezaka, and maybe that is why he said, Panu Kalem Min Habayis. So Chafei, we learned the midden of Oisik Misapotam Mitzvah and Pesach Sheni. Mishoel and Eli Tzafon were Noisei Aroinoi Shel Yosef, and they were Nitchel Pesach Sheni. Is there any greater tzaddik than Yosef HaTzaddik? Shmoi Mochiach. He was Yosef HaTzaddik. And Meshor Vetzaf and Noisei Aroinoi Shel Yosef, and therefore they were Nitchel for Pesach Sheni. That proves that Kivrei Tzadikim are Mitame Ba'oil. Over Mitzvah Pei, the Gemara tells that Reish Lakish Oyom Etzayin Marte de Rabbonon. Reish Lakish was Metzayin the Ma'orois Kvura of the great sages of the Chachamim. Rashi says because Kohanim shouldn't be Nitmo. So obviously Marte de Rabbonon, the days of the Amiroim are still Mitame Ba'oil. Far beyond that, in Bava Basra and Dafnun Ches, Rav Benoi have a Mitzayin Kvuras Tzadikim, and he measured the caver of Avram Avinu in Ma'oras HaMachpelah. Why did he need those measurements? To keep the Koyanim away. Yosef HaTzadik was Matama. Avram Avinu was Matama. The Rabbanon in the days of Reish Lakish were Matama. So, should be no wonder that the same applies to Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. Last source on my list is in Sanhedrin Lamed Tes Amud Aleph. Ahu mina shoel Rabavuhu Elokechem kohen kishekover es Moshe b'may toval. Strange question. But an Apikoros Amin asks Rabavuhu, Kodesh Baruch Hu is a kohen. And he is the one that buried Moshe. Lo yoda ish es kavurasa. Chazal say Kodesh Baruch Hu himself was metaper b'kvuras Moshe. So how was he oile mit Tumah Tahara? Where was he toival? And the Babur says, toval be'eish. Why didn't the Kodesh Baruch Hu, why didn't the Babur say, Kivrei Tzadikim eino metamin? Moshe Rabbeinu was number one on the list. I said this many times in Yeshiva. No one ever walked the face of earth. No one that achieved the greatness of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yes, he comes before Avraham Avinu, before Yosef HaTzadik. Like come Navi ke Moshe, ba'achav lo yihiyeh. One of the Yudhim al-Mikram is, V'hu hayu av le'naviyim le'kodmim le'fonav ve'lo'bo'am acharav. So the Apokoyres, the mean asks, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as a Kohen, was nitman Moshe Rabbeinu. Why does the Babur say, Kivrei Tzadikim eino metamin? I don't think we could prove much from this source because, as the Rishonim explain on the spot, Yad Ramah and others, wasn't really a serious discussion. That mean was just trying to, to annoy Reb Abu. And Reb Abu was Makayim, Yanek Sil, Givalto. Respond to a fool in the same token of his foolishness, of his stupidity. So I don't think this source would really prove anything. Throughout the ages, throughout the years, the generations, many Gedolim dealt halacha with this question. And I dafka want to quote Hasidic sources because that's the most relevant. Because the ones that wanted to argue and believe and maintain that Kivrei Tzadikim eino metamin were always Hasidim. Because this entire endeavor of going to Kforim, to daven, is more many Hasidim than any other community. Shuvas Minchas Alosha Chelik Gimel Sinesamach Dalad. The Minchas Alosha was not only a Chassid, he was a Rebbe. He was the leader of a big Hasidic Chutzah, the Munkat Sharav. And in his Shuvas, he was also a huge Talmid Chacham, one of the Gedolim of his time. And that is pre-Holocaust Europe. He passed away 5 years before the Holocaust broke out. Minchas Alosha Shuvas Chelik Dalad, Chelik Gimel Sinesamach Dalad. Paskins Kivrei Tzadikim Armit Tama Ba'oil. Shalas Shuvas Tuv Tam V'das Chelik Gimel Simen Reish Lamed Aleph. That's Reb Shloime Kluger. Reb Shloime Kluger wasn't really much of a chassid, but the question presented, could Kohanim go on the kever of Reb Matalet Chernobyl? And Reb Shloime Kluger says, no. It's not that he wasn't a huge tzaddik. It goes without saying. But Reb Shloime Kluger says there is no basis to the argument that Kivrei Tzadikim eino metamin ba'oil. Reb Meir Alek, he was a chassid. He was the chassid of the Tzaddik Rebbe, of Reb David Moshe. And we find it Tshuva in Imre Yoshe Chelek Siman Amidalad, and he plans the oil on the kever of Reb David Moshe Tzaddik in a way that Kohanim should be able to come close to the oil. So it is clear in his Tshuva as well. Kivrei Tzadikim Armit Tama Ba'oil. Divrei Yecheskel at the end of the Sefer. And I would ask you, who was the Divrei Yecheskel? So many London in the literature world would say that Yecheskel Borenstein, he was a Talmud of Reb Chaim Brisker. Yes, but there was another Divrei Yecheskel. Reb Yecheskel Shenever, the great son of the Divrei Chaim, the leader of Shenever Hasidim. At the end of Divrei Yecheskel ala Torah, there's a tshuva, and in Siman Aleph he writes, clearly saying, Kivrei Tzadikim are mitama ba'oil. Two very important sources. Be'ez HaShulchan. Who was the Be'ez HaShulchan? Who knows? Rabbi Solomon Shklov, one of the great disciples of the Gaon. And he headed a group of Talmidei HaGaon that made Aliyah 200 years ago. He settled in the north, in Tzfas, in Tveria, and he was one of the Gedolim in Israel. And in Pe'esa Shilchon Hilchas Eretz Yisrael Perek Beisim and Yud Ches, he clearly paskins Kivrei Tzadikim Marmet Tamaboy, and a Kohen can go on Kivrei Tzadikim. Zdei Chemed Chelik Tes writes a big arichas, and his conclusion is the same. And why is this important? Because both were Gedolei Eretz Yisrael. Pesach Shalchan in the north, the Zdei Chemed was the Rav in Chevron. They were familiar with Minig Eretz Yisrael. Nowhere do we find the Minig Eretz Yisrael that Kivrei Tzadikim are not Metama B'Oil. Nowhere, maybe that is somewhat of an exaggeration. The Chida does bring in one of the Torah Pnei David Ala Torah Pashas B'Shalach that the minig is to be Mekel. The Chida was in Yerushalayim. So we do find one of the Gedolei Eretz Yisrael that writes, that was the minig. Even though we don't see it on Pesach Shulchan, we don't see it in Zdei Chemed. Shalosh Teshuvos Zei Saranon, Chelik Beisim and Chavav. One of the greatest Gedolim in Poland, Sof Yoma, became to Yerushalayim. And there's a tshuva in which Reb Shmuel Salant was the Rav of Yerushalayim, asked the Zei Saranon, could Koyanim go into Cave Rochel? And he says no. Rochel Amenu was at Tzedekis. So all these Gedolei Eretz Yisrael were not aware of the minig that the Bnei Yisrael writes. And these Gedolei Eretz Yisrael paskin that Kivrei Tzadikim are Metama B'Oil. However, the Chida does write that the minig is to be Mekel. There's a Sefer Abir Haroyim. It is a biography of the Avnei Nezer, the Safed Shabbat Rebbe. And in Abir Haroyim, it is told that when the Sfazemis passed away, the Hasidim turned to the Avnei Nezer to ask, could the Koyanim approach the Mitzvah? They asked the Avnei Nezer because Avnei Nezer was one of the Gedolei Ador, but he was a Rebbe himself. Obviously being sympathetic to the minig that Koyanim could go to the Levaya and approach the mitzvah of their beloved Rebbe. But as it is told in Abir Haroyim, the Avnei Nezer never said, when the Kotzker Rebbe passed away, same Shiur was presented to the Shiurim, and the Shiurim paskin that Koyanim cannot approach the mitzvah because Kivrei Tzadikim are Metama B'Oil. Well, this is a very relevant question for Koyanim, for young Koyanim in Eretz Yisrael that want to go to Kivrei Tzadikim. No, the halacha is Kivrei Tzadikim are Metama